Hey guys, welcome back to Lay's Place. Hey guys, welcome back to Lay's Place. I'm Lay, and if you read the title, then you know that today we're getting into my top 5 tips for beginner plant parents. Now you might be thinking, what does she know about giving advice to new plant parents? Well, first and foremost, and I want to put it up on the screen, over the course of the past 3 years, I have sustained, killed, gifted, sold, etc. over 690 plants, which I know sounds insane. Right now, I'm batting at about, I think it was somewhere in like 89% of plants that I've been able to keep alive. So I think that I have a little idea of how to help a new plant parent be able to embark on this journey. So I think my first tip for beginners is understanding that the plant that you have is hugely impacted by the environment that that plant is in. So knowing your plant is how you determine, when do I water my plant? Is my plant getting enough light? Is my plant doing well in this substrate? Or how often I'm watering or fertilizing? Those are all going to be dependent on the kind of environment that your plant is in. For example, I want to make sure that you guys can see this. This is my Bambarata, and it is nice and lush and full right now, but I have almost killed it at least 3 times. It would droop suddenly, and I would not understand why, because the soil wasn't dried out all the way, and I didn't want to overwater it because, right, that's all that new plant parents hear in the beginning is don't overwater your plant. Long story short, it took me understanding how much light it was getting and how quickly the plant would dry out, what type of soil it was in. When I had it in chunkier soils, it dried out a lot sooner. It was actually pretty dramatic. So learning to understand my plant's environment has really changed the game. It helps me to create the kind of care plan for my plant that my plant thrives in the most. Tip number 2, which you've probably heard a lot, but maybe in different ways, is listen to your plant's watering needs. So this is my Philodendron McDowell, and this is actually, I think, the second version of her. She had grown pretty huge. I'll see if I can insert a picture here, but she'd grown pretty huge, and I ended up cutting her back. I think she might have gotten burnt by the sun during the summer or something like that. But this was one of the first philodendron that I understood needed not to dry out as much as I was used to letting plants dry out. It was a thirsty plant. And so I really loved having clear pots. One, because I could see the roots, but I could also see how much moisture was left in the soil. And normally, if it looks a lot darker, that's probably where there is still some moisture. And typically, where it looks a lot lighter is going to be where the moisture has drained out. And since I am a bottom waterer, the contrast in this makes a lot of sense. But that's one way that you can check to see how much your plant has dried out. You also can look at the foliage. I don't have any dry plants right now to show you, but when your plant is sad, it will start to droop a little bit. And so the way that you know, okay, maybe it just was watering, is that you water it and it will come back to life. So that's not always the case when it's drooping, but a lot of times our plants will show us exactly what it is that they need in their behaviors. Another way that you can check soil, especially if you are someone who top waters and you water thoroughly, is that you can just stick your finger in there. Just stick your finger in there. Or you can stick a little stick or something in there. If you put the stick in there and you pull it out and the soil is like clumping onto it, it probably means that the soil is still moist. And based on the plant that you have, does that mean that it's ready to get watered again, or is this a plant that needs to dry out a little bit more? My third tip is going to be about soil and substrates. You have to test the soil and substrates that works best for your plant care, your environment, and your plants. Remember that that can change from plant to plant. It might even change from season to season. Let me tell you what I mean. So this is my variegated Billietiae, which I got, hold on, sometime at the top of the summer. And it is a tissue culture version of this plant, which is perfectly acceptable. But when I first got it, it was in higher humidity. And so I wanted this plant to be able to take off with roots. I wanted this plant to take off with roots so that I could get it established and move it out of my cabinet that it was in last year. So I opted for a soil that would help me with that. What sometimes does not always make sense is to have plants in super, 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 super chunky soil when we're trying to keep the plant from drying out, or having a plant in super, super moisture retentive soil when you want to water your plants once a week. It doesn't really make sense for the type of care that the plant is getting. So while I think it's really important that new plant parents understand well draining soil, letting your plant dry out, etc., etc., there are levels to the amount of aeration that you add to your soil. My fourth tip, as we're wrapping up this video, is one that I think I really struggled with when I first started caring for plants. And as you can see, it's not really something that I struggle with now, but that light is fuel. And just kind of like what we've been talking about, watering needs and environment and how often you water, your soil draining out, the light, the amount of light, the type of light, the quality of light that your plant is getting actually determines quite a bit for your plant. And so I remember not understanding what the heck that meant. There's actually a video that Tanner the planter um, posted that really helped me to understand that the light that we have in our house, even if it's the brightest window, the best direction window in our home, whether we have the best grow lights in the world that money can buy, nothing really beats the sun. In his video, what he showed is that when a plant has a really good view of the sky, so he would show himself sitting behind the plant and seeing what the plant could see. That was a pretty good indication that it could get some pretty good light. Blinds, windows, overcast from the clouds, shade from outside or trees, all of those things kind of dapple the light, meaning that the plant will receive a little less light. So when it says indirect, it literally just means light that's a little shaded, light that is still bright, but that it is not direct, meaning the sun shining directly on your plant. So what I recommend for people is to use if you have an iPhone, Android, if you have a smartphone at all, or you can go and find one, pull out your compass app, see which direction your window is, and that will tell you for where you are, your location, how much sun you should expect to get in that window. If you're having challenges with the amount of light you're getting, grow lights are a wonderful option. Just make sure that your plant is getting some light. And you'll be able to tell if your plant is getting enough light, if it is continuing to grow throughout the various seasons. My fifth tip, and probably one that you've heard in my other videos, is start cheap. You do not need to overinvest in your plant hobby. I say that because being online, seeing other people's collection can really, really give you that FOMO, make you feel like you need more things than one, you actually know how to use, and two, that you actually can afford or have the capacity for. And I definitely caught myself in that place in the beginning. As I've always said, one of my number one tips is trying to get things for free or cheap. I built most of my collection through Facebook Market and Facebook groups. Lots of people, sometimes me included, giving away plants, or propping and sharing plants for a lot cheaper. And oftentimes they are pretty well established or have the kind of intentional care that sometimes you don't get when you buy plants in big box stores. You also don't have to buy everything. I have thrifted plant goods, I've repurposed plant goods. Even this pot that this bambarata is in, I think it was a plant pot that someone gave me for free. I just posted asking if anyone had pots. Not only did this person give me free pots, they dropped them off. And I just used a soldering iron and I put some holes in it. And I used it for my plant. And it's been very, very happy since I put it in there maybe 2 months ago. Start cheap. You don't always need to splurge or buy really expensive things. Please don't buy a moisture meter. My God, please do not buy a moisture meter. You don't always need to splurge or buy things just because everyone's saying that they use it or that they need it. Now that we've finished the 5 tips, I have a bonus tip. Kill and learn. You're going to kill plants. You're gonna kill plants. You're gonna kill props. You're gonna kill plants until you figure out what works for you in your environment and the way that you care for plants. Some of the things that I feel like absolutely help with navigating that, I think first and foremost is a soldering iron. You can get you a soldering iron if you're someone who thinks you're gonna go with the clear pot route till you understand how to water plants without having to see the roots. Get you a soldering iron, you can turn almost anything into a pot. Second, hydrogen peroxide. There might be some pros on here who are like, that's crazy, don't tell people that, but I go through quite a bit of hydrogen peroxide. If I don't water prop anymore, but when I used to couldn't tell if the plant was happy or not. Transferring into soil. Sometimes when I'm transferring a plant into pond, or I'm transferring it from moss to soil, whatever that looks like. Sometimes I'm not sure how it's going, and I will throw a little splash of hydrogen peroxide. Now, most of us in plant parenting learn about hydrogen peroxide as something that helps us after there's been root rot, which is absolutely true. I soak bare root plants in peroxide if there is any rot, if I have any concerns, whether I am killing the plant or the plant came to me a little messed up. But you don't always have to do that. Sometimes people just putting in their watering can to water their plant. You can do that. I will squirt it directly in the pot. A little squirt, squirt. Love hydrogen peroxide. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. A lot shorter, quicker, straight to the point. At least that's what I'm hoping this video was like. Please let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, let me know what your top tips are for beginners, or if you are a beginner, talk to me about some of these tips or things that you feel like you're struggling with. And maybe you might see that in my next video. Again, I'm Lay. Thank you guys so much for joining Lay's Place. I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Let me know that you're here. And thanks so much for joining me. Bye, guys.